I spent the day in Chattanooga, and I was over in Roane County, and now I'm here, and after this I'll be going back to Nashville. So one of the great things about this campaign is I've been able to spend just a tremendous amount of time on I-40. I love it. Every moment there is been special. So my name is Karl Dean, and I'm running for governor, and let me just tell you a little bit about myself. Let me start from the beginning. I was born in South Dakota. My family, my parents both grew up on farms in northern Illinois. My dad went to the service and then to college, and when he got out of college, he started working for IBM, and in my life that meant I've been moved. We moved around a little bit, mostly in the Midwest, and then when IBM sold off the portion of the company my dad worked in, we ended up in a small town in central Massachusetts, north central Massachusetts, named Gardner. It's up by the New Hampshire border, directly north of Worcester, if you know your way around there. And it was a town of about 18,000 when I was growing up. It was a city that was known for making chairs. Its nickname is Chairtown. They made colonial furniture, and if you have an alumni chair, it's almost inevitably built in Gardner. We had the world's largest chair outside of my high school. When I graduated from law school, in high school in 1974, I decided to go to college in New York City. And when I was getting out of college in '78, I thought the world needed another lawyer, so I was going to go to law school. And I was strongly encouraged to apply to Vanderbilt, and so I did. And went and moved to Nashville in 1978. And when I got to law school, a couple of important things happened to me. I enjoyed my time at Vanderbilt and enjoyed the law. But the most important thing that happened to me was I met a woman. She was in my law school class. She was a Nashville native. And so we meet, we fall in love, and go through about a 2-year process of arguing the merits of growing dynamic Nashville and Chairtown. And I live in Nashville now. And I've been there since basically since 1978. And Ann, my wife, Ann Davis, is here. And as in Nashville, it's turned out to be a great place for us to live. We raised 3 kids. We have a son who's a lawyer in Nashville, 2 daughters that will graduate from college this year. And we had our first grandchild on Valentine's Day this year. When I got out of law school, I joined the Public Defender's Office and worked as a public defender for really close to 16 years. I was an assistant public defender, and I found the work very interesting. I found it very rewarding. I felt that every day when I went to work, I helped people. I helped them have representation in court and did my very best to uphold their rights. I felt I was doing good in helping clients with problems with drug addiction or alcohol, helping them get the treatment they needed, helping people get mental health treatment. So in 1990, I ran for public defender. I was elected and re-elected in 94 and 98. And then in 1999, a fellow who I worked with as an assistant public defender, Bill Purcell, got elected mayor, and he asked me to leave the public defender's office and become the director of law for Nashville. And what that is, basically, is you run the law department for the city, about 35 lawyers, and you handle all the city's legal affairs. And that is very interesting work because you're kind of involved in everything that's going on in the city. And then in 2007, when Bill's term was coming to an end, his 2 terms, I decided there were a lot of things that I was interested in that I wanted to do for the city, that I had some ideas. And so I decided to run for mayor. And I got into the race. There were already 4 or 5 serious candidates involved, all with more name recognition to me. But I thought at that point, I think I was close to turning 50, I thought, this is something I really want to do. If I could lose this, but at the same time, if I don't do this, I'll regret it the rest of my life. And so I ran. And one of my most distinct memories of that time was when, about in March, a paper that no longer exists in Nashville, the city paper, did an online poll. And it's totally unscientific. You just go online and vote as many times as you want. And the results came out, and I was dead last. And not only was I last, I was 5, 6%, very, very low. And I have a real distinct memory of coming down one morning to go out and campaign, and Ann is there with our our then 14-year-old daughter, our middle child, having breakfast, and Ann and I start talking about this poll. And I look over at my daughter, and her face is getting real serious, and she looks real grave. And then she finally says, she got up and came over to me, and she said, Dad, there's still time for you to drop out. You can still get out of this. So luckily I hung in there, and I won the election and became the mayor of Nashville in September of '07. And you know, I really had two very different terms as mayor. My first term, when I took office in September, I think Nashville was going in a good direction. Nashville has really had sort of steady growth for probably the 20 years before that. But about 7 months later, in 2008, the country felt the results of the greatest economic downturn since the Depression, the Great Recession. And it really changed everything. All of a sudden, everything stopped. People started losing their jobs. People were concerned about being able to hold on to their homes. And as you would expect, revenue for the city dropped dramatically. In fact, over the period of the recession, we had 1 year where we had less revenue than the year before. It's the only time that's happened in the history of the metropolitan government. And so I knew we had to make some difficult decisions. I knew that we had to, number one, get our budget under control. We had to make cuts. We had to make sure that we weren't turning to the people, asking them for additional revenue when they were trying to balance their own family books. We had to make our cuts too. So we cut most departments 15 to 20%. But when I ran for mayor, I had real clear priorities. My priorities were public education, public safety, and economic development. And so we didn't cut schools, and we didn't cut public safety, and we didn't stop working on economic development. I mean, during my first year in office is when we had what then was a crisis, that the predators were being moved, or people were trying to buy them, and we had to work out a deal where local ownership came in, and then we had to redo the lease. And luckily, the predators stayed in Nashville. And it's kind of funny to look back on it now, because the big issue when we were doing that was, would they ever be successful? Would they ever draw a crowd? And now, of course, Nashville is one of the best hockey cities in America. But, you know, in terms of economic development, that's when we built the new convention center at the depths of the recession, and a lot of people said, why should we be doing this now? To me, it was one of the things I think government should do, which is invest in the city, that we needed to prepare for the future. And so we went ahead with that largest construction project in the history of the city, and it was never going to be cheaper. I mean, the cost of everything, whether it was the bonds, whether it was the materials involved, the land, it was cheaper than it was ever going to be. And then it turned out to be a great success. By the end of my first term, some of the work we did in economic development in terms of recruiting companies and keeping companies in Nashville and trying to create more jobs was paying off. The convention center was opening with hotels being built and restaurants being built. We started seeing more businesses coming to Nashville. The TV show Nashville came to Nashville. The New York Times called us Ed City, and tourism just shot through the roof. And that was the beginning of the boom that really has continued to this day. During my second term, the boom was ongoing, and it wasn't, we weren't rolling in money. We still had a lot of things we needed to do, but it was a lot easier to manage the city. We were able to do things that I wanted to do, like increase teacher pay. We moved Nashville from 33rd in the state in teacher pay to 3rd in the state. We were able to invest a lot in our police department, new police precincts. We were able to do open space work, greenways, things like that. But it was a good time to be mayor. When I left office, I was thinking about running for governor, and so since leaving office in September 2015, I've been teaching. I taught for a semester at Boston University, and I've been teaching at Belmont University in Nashville, political science and history, and it's been fun and it's been rewarding. But I decided to get into the governor's race because I believe the people of Tennessee want a governor who is going to be practical, pragmatic, common sense, kind of get things done, not an ideologue. Someone who's more interested in resolving issues and improving the life of Tennesseans than arguing about ideology or issues we have no control over. And I think one of the models that we've had in our state, we've had two former mayors serve as governor, Bill Haslam and Phil Bredesen. And I think what mayors bring to this job is, when I ran for mayor in Nashville, it was a nonpartisan election. So I had to get Democrats, Republicans, and independents to support me. And then when you're running the city, you don't do it on a political party way. You do it what's going to make the city a better place to live in, what's going to help the citizens, what's going to help our future. And I think that's what people want at the state level. I've always loved the quote from Mayor LaGuardia in New York in the 1930s, who said, there's no Democrat or Republican way of filling a pothole. People just want their potholes filled. And I think that's what people want to see, results from government. I think when people look at Washington, D.C., they see dysfunction, they see nothing happening, and they want something better for their own state. To me, the big issues in the campaign are, first of all, in my mind, the top priority for the state needs to be education. That is the thing that has the biggest effect on people's lives. That is the thing that's going to move our state forward in the most dramatic way. We need to be a state that produces and attracts more college graduates, but at the same time, we need to be a state that understands that not everyone will go to college, and that we need to make sure that there are apprenticeship and technical and vocational programs available to give everybody a chance to earn a good wage. And I think that effective education is so positive on all areas. It's important for economic development, it's important for public safety, and it's important for health. And so to me, we have to continue the work of keeping education as our top priority, and that's what I would want to do. The other area that I think is important is economic opportunity, job creation. When I was mayor of Nashville during that time period, as we came out of the recession and through my second term, over 70,000 new jobs were created in Nashville. I like doing economic development work. I believe that it's very important that we have a strong private sector economy that is producing opportunities for people to work, producing opportunities for people to get ahead in life, to live their dreams. It's also important to have a good tax base that allows you to invest in education, that allows you to do what you want to do with parks and greenways and other things. So to me, that's vitally important. And then the third issue to me is health. The health issue is a broad issue, but I think what's on people's minds right now is people are very uncertain what's happening on the national level with healthcare. People, I think, recognize that the fact that when the Tennessee legislature would not expand Medicaid, that's probably the biggest mistake our state's made in probably 25 or 30 years.
Yes.
The effect of that has been dramatic. We have lost over $3.5 billion since that time. That is money that could have been used to give insurance, to make health care affordable and available to people with low incomes, to people with disabilities, to people with pre-existing conditions, and to people who are aging. And that money that we turned down isn't sitting somewhere waiting for us to ask for it. That money has been spent in states all around us and all over the country. States such as Kentucky, states such as Indiana. And as a result of this, what we've seen is you've got people who have healthcare issues who don't go to the hospital because they're afraid they can't pay for it. And so they feel they can't go. And that's just wrong. And then you have people who go to the hospital or seek medical care without insurance, and they face financial ruin. And that's wrong. Or then you get folks who go to the hospital and there's no reimbursement available, and so the hospitals are not compensated, and the hospitals do not have the funds they need to operate. So in Tennessee, in recent years, at least partially because of the Medicaid expansion issue, we have had more hospital closures than any state in the country other than Texas. We've had 9. And we have several hospitals that are kind of teetering right now. And so what does that mean when a hospital closes? Well, think about, it's generally in Tennessee, these are small towns and rural areas where hospitals have closed. Think about how hard it is to keep your residents or to attract new residents if your hospital is closed. Think about how hard it is to attract business or jobs when your hospital has closed. You know, one of the things we need to do in Tennessee is to make sure that our small towns and rural areas prosper, that they thrive, that they continue to exist. Not having hospitals puts them in a very perilous position. I think the next governor of Tennessee is going to be confronted with the issue of how do you keep, how do we get our fair share of Medicaid dollars? You know, right now we're not getting that. And the reason for it is, I think it was all political. It was not made in the best interest of the people of Tennessee, and it certainly has hurt our state. Now, this is a wonderful state. I mean, this is a beautiful state. I've had the honor so far of visiting 70 counties, and we'll get to all of them. But every part of the state is special, unique, is filled with wonderful people. The people in Tennessee are the friendliest people around. It's a state that I think the best days for Tennessee are still to come. We have a great future. But to get to that future, we have to take care of the fundamental issues that are facing our state, the fundamental needs of our citizens, which to me are education, economic opportunity, and health care. And if we focus on those fundamentals, I think we'll be just fine. The campaign has gone very well. I've been at this since March. As I've mentioned, I've traveled a lot. I've spoken to a lot of people. We've had success in fundraising in the first reporting period. We raised more than any Democrat has in a decade, over a decade. And I feel that, you know, if you look at polls recently, we're in good shape. I think this race is definitely a race that can be won. But to win, we have to work hard. We have to get the word out, and I'm willing to work harder than anyone. But I need your help. You can go to karldean.com is our website and learn about the campaign. You can volunteer, you can contribute, but I need your support, and I'm asking for your vote. I would be happy to answer any easy questions.